William Vondanevalu. He will present to you the highlights and the financials for 2022, and then afterwards we will have a Q&A session. And so if you need anything else, there are FNPF staff that are on standby. You can see them wearing FNPF t-shirts with logo. Please ask them any questions that you may have. Before we invite the CEO to present his official presentation, may I invite us all for a word of prayer, please. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we have. We thank you that we are able to come together in this wonderful facility, Father. We pray that as we hear the presentations, as we have these discussions, all that will be shared today, all the information that will be given to us today, that we will be able to absorb them, Father. We pray too for the speakers today, our CEO, as well as the other panelists, Father. We pray that you will help them to answer the questions they may be asked and to present, Father, the information of the fund in a manner that our members are able to get. We pray for those that are online. Please watch over them. Please bless this event. Guide us with your love. This is our prayer. In Jesus' holy and mighty name we pray. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, we now invite our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. William Vondanevalu, for his official presentation. Vinak.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you all. Firstly, I give thanks to the Almighty God, Creator of heaven and earth, for the gift of life and for His protection and help over the years. Indeed, God is good and is good all the time. It's indeed an honor and a privilege for us to be back here in the West. To hold our members forum required under section 19 of the FNPF. The members forum is an event that the fund looks forward to, as it gives us an opportunity to engage with you, our members, employers, and pensioners. Here our agenda is shown on the slide. We will take you through our current financial performance, our key activities, and then discuss some of our challenges. Most of what I will share with you today is in the annual report summary that is available in your forum pack. At the conclusion of my presentation, then we will open a question and answer session. The past year has been challenging for our members and business alike. We had to adjust to pandemic that has altered our lifestyle and our routine. At the fund, we are most happy with our response and are reassured that despite overcoming one of the most difficult periods in our nation that ever endured, the FNPF continued to provide assistance as best as could have. The pandemic has demonstrated that nothing is ever certain, that our models and operation design must be more adaptable and sustainable. Although the operating climate continued to gradually improve, FNPF team did its best to step up and deliver. As at 30th June 2022, the fund has a total asset of 8.7 billion, an increase of 500 million or 0.5 billion, a 6% growth from the previous year. Our net income was 650.8 million, an increase of 107.3 million, or 19.7%, a growth from prior year. As a result of the cut in contribution rate from 18 to 10, collection was low as 395.5 million. Contribution rate was increased by 14% as at the 1st of January 2023. We're now pursuing government to have our contribution rate fully restored as soon as practical. As at 30th June 2022, members' fund in total amounted to 6.7 billion, an increase of 100 million from prior year, or a growth of 2% despite the negative net withdrawal for 2022. Our net increase in net asset, or the amount available for distribution during the year, was 600.5 million, an increase of 104 million, or 21% increase from 2021. We were able to declare 6% interest in 2022, enable the fund to distribute 370 million to over 392,000 members' accounts. The growth in interest is related to the high return achieved from investment that have been strategically managed by FNPF. In the past 5 years, the fund has credited 1.6 billion in members' accounts. Our solvency and investment reserve is what protects your fund. Investment reserve are applied on asset value. As at 30th June 2022, our FNPF reserve stand at 1.7 billion. Despite the significant COVID-19 payout during the year, FNPF was still able to achieve growth in investment portfolio. The fund posted a 7.4% return on investment in 2022. Predominant component of investment return is the government bond interest. Bond rate decreased during the year, impacting current long-term yield, as well as a result of high liquidity in the financial system. Income and equity investment also contribute to a positive return during the year. From 2020, our return on investment have been positive and began to normalize as the economy has picked up post-COVID. Our investment portfolio currently stands at 8.6 billion as at 30th June 2022. Investment portfolio grew from 4.46 billion in 2014 to 18.6 billion in 2022. This is the growth during the period of 93%. The diversification of investment portfolio is the most successful strategy, investing in defensive and growth assets. In addition to COVID-19 unemployment assistance, the fund continued to assist members under normal withdrawal grounds. Including unemployment, FNPF paid out a total of 467 million during the year, a decrease of 33.8 million from 2021. This can be attributed to normalizing of unemployment withdrawal as members return to work. We have continued to pay out members as and when they need, and more importantly, if they qualify under our requirement. The fund is administratively and financially capable to meet our commitment to our members. At the end of June 2022, the fund had a total of 398,593 members. Breakdown in compulsory, voluntary by gender are as seen on the screen. Compulsory member, 214,536. Voluntary member, 12,242. And male gender slightly have a membership advantage over the female. Our total number of pensioners was 7,922 at the end of year 2022, with 52% being our male pensioners. Our pension take-up rate last year was 4.9% compared to 3.7% in 2021. The total number of active employers was 7,732 in 2022. These are employers that have paid their employee contribution at least once during the financial year. I will now go through our key achievement for 2022. For the first 6 months of 2022, we continue to provide COVID unemployment assistance to those members that are still affected. When the COVID assistance was introduced in 2022, 220 million have been paid from members' account and 186 million topped up by government. Total payment to date is 406 million. 3 initiatives were also rolled out by the fund to assist members who continue to face financial hardship as a result of COVID. These were COVID loan mortgage assistance, the low balance full withdrawal, and micro business assistance. Sustaining our digital focus was also a key activity in 2022. We enhanced our employer portal called Employer 2 and trialed this with selected employers. The myFNPF apps was enhanced to accept submission of funeral and advice of death application. In collaboration with BSP, the fund implemented the Internet Payment Gateway, IPG, into myFNPF app. This allows members to perform end-to-end digital transactions as well as allowing payment of contribution and registration of new voluntary members. The fund back office processes continue to be automated in relation to the administration of members, pensioners, and employers. Our key investment activity for 2022 were the completion of Sheraton Fiji Resort refurbishment. This was a key milestone, as was the opening of the resort. Sheraton Fiji Resort has now set a standard on Denarau, offering superior service and product. Westin Resort is currently closed and is undergoing renovation. We have completed the mock-up room for Westin, and the appointment of contractors will be completed soon. We also opened the Nadi retail center to the public, which is where we are this evening. The new FNPF office should be opening out of FNPF Center in the coming financial year. The acquisition of 30.02 shares of the Fiji Airways was a strategic investment for our national strategic asset, totaling 93.1 million. Biohospital, managed by Aspen Medical, also opened for operation, and we were delighted to see that is well underway in performing open heart surgeries. I would like to elaborate more on the Fiji Airways and the biohospital investment, as I know these are topics of interest. There is also a case study in your annual report summary on page 16 on the Fiji Airways acquisition. With FNPF being a long-term financial investor, this was an opportunity not to be missed. This investment adds value not only to the fund-hosted portfolio, but also synergies and enables potential investment opportunities such as medical and aged care tourism, sport tourism, and commercial agriculture. This investment will consider on its own merit, and I can assure you that we have engaged professional, credible, and reputable firms with aviation expertise to undertake independent due diligence for the fund. Member will be able to earn a dividend income from the growth of the value of FNPF shares over time. This is in addition to the interest income from existing loan. To date, Fiji Airways have repaid 116.3 million in loan principal, and we've also have received 99.7 million in loan interest. As of 30th June 2022, total loan balance held with Fiji Airways is around 226.5 million. Fiji Airways is a strategic asset for Fiji, and having a strong airline is crucial for our tourist industry and an enabler to other investment opportunity, which I've mentioned before. As for the Healthcare Fiji, we are excited about this venture, and it contributes towards an improvement, health service, and a facility for our members and the general public alike. It is also an enabler for other investment opportunities. Members are also going to benefit through dividend come from project, apart from a healthcare service improvement. There was a delay in the provision of some services due to impact of pandemic on the hospital supplies and resources. We are now looking into the construction of a cardio unit in Lautoka as scope 1 of the project. To date, FNPF have invested 20.8 million to fund the operation of the healthcare Fiji and Bar and Lautoka Hospital. Now to our way forward or future plan. With strategic theme of resetting, repositioning the fund to beyond, we still have many challenges ahead, both operational and financial. We need to clarify our role and find a balance between members' expectation and our core purpose in securing your future, a meaningful retirement. We need also to address the low balance, members' balance issue. 3, we also need to ensure our withdrawal products are relevant. 4, the fund needs to offer a variety of retirement products to suit different segments of our members. 5, we must ensure the sustainability of our retirement product and also diversify our investment in the local market and also internationally. The question then, what is our way forward? We will strive to affirm our purpose. We would improve in how we collect contribution and also invest. We want to be the best provider of financial advisor. We want to champion the preservation policy and help you save a meaningful retirement. We will strive to develop and offer relevant product during your working life and in retirement. FNPF will always ensure that members will share in what the fund gains and will never be liable for your losses. For some super fund around the world, its member would bear the risk and the impact of losses is felt in balances being reduced. For FNPF, we are not allowed by law to do this, and that is added protection for the members. Members' fund cannot be used as collateral as per Section 94 of FNPF Act. We are here to protect your fund. By law, FNPF must comply with the legislated solvency requirement, which means total value of our asset must be at least 110% of the value of our liability. This is per Section 32 of FNPF Act. We also have other sound management mechanisms in place, such as ongoing monthly solvency monitoring that is done by an independent actuary, annual actuarial solvency review. We've got independent valuation on investment measure of fair value during audit, external audit on financial year end, and also application of international accounting standard. Our current reserve is at 1.7 billion, as I have also stated earlier. Ultimately, we would strive to ensure your retirement security. It has not been an easy year for us, but definitely we have come out better for the experience and therefore have become resilient in the process. FNPF is safe and secure. Let no one convince you otherwise. This brings me to the end of my presentation and update. My sincere thanks to all of you being here this evening, and we look forward to a healthy, productive question and answer segment. Pinakabalik.
Pinakabalik CEO for that presentation, and I know our members here can't wait to ask some questions to the panelists. Yes. So we have our panelists. I invite our panelists to please take your seats as we outline some of the protocols for the question and answer session. So as our panelists take their seats, let me just outline a little bit some of the protocols for the question and answer session. We'll just ask, we'll just wait till it's on there, on the whiteboard. So, thank you. We humbly ask that if you have a question, we ask that you please raise your hand. A mic will be brought to you, and if you can then stand up as you ask the questions that you might have. We ask before you ask the questions that you first state your name and whether you're a member, or an employer, or a pensioner, and before you ask your questions. You can also ask in the vernacular language, and we'll do our best to interpret what that is. We ask, I know sometimes we have lots of questions, and sometimes we might be emotional about some of them. We ask that please don't shout. Let's ask those questions respectfully, and we should be able to be okay. If you have some questions but are afraid to ask them directly, there's a phone number, that's a mobile number that's there on the whiteboard, on the slide in the front. You can text your questions there, and we will do our best to also ask those questions on your behalf. For those of our viewers that are online, if you have a question, please just you write it on our Facebook streaming live the page, and we will do our best also to address those questions. I hope that we are all okay with the guidelines and the protocol for our Q&A session today. So let me just introduce the panelists. So on my far left is Mr. Pravinesh Singh. He is the Chief Operating Officer of FNPF. All right. In the middle is Mr. Alipate Wangairawai. He's the General Manager for Member Services, looking after all our member services, and CEO has been introduced before, Mr. Vilame Vondone Valu. Okay, and I hope that we will have a fruitful Q&A session. So before we CEO, sir, is our fund safe?
Absolutely safe. Absolutely safe.
Thank you, CEO, for that, right? We now open the Q&A session to the floor. Please raise your hand, and the staff will bring a mic to you. Okay, while okay, thank you, CEO. While our members are thinking of the questions to answer, perhaps we'll ask the members of the Q&A panelists, what benefit can an employer have for one who would like to get a commercial loan? How can he go about that, and what benefits does an employer have?
Siti, the question is whether an employer can have access to commercial loans, right?
Yes.
Definitely. We have a commercial loan portfolio whereby you can access, but it's not only restricted to employers, it's open to any business or private sector. And there are a number of requirements that you need to fulfill. But then again, you need to come and see one of our investment officers. We are a trustee fund. We look after your money, so it's very important. We do our due diligence before we loan money to any of the customers under the commercial loan portfolio. It's very similar to accessing loans at banks, and you know the number of requirements they have. However, for us, it's a bit different because we're an institutional investor. We offer large loans. I think minimum we're looking at $1 million. So for that, you will need to provide the requirements that's part of the commercial loan portfolio checklist. And we need to ensure that you have sufficient collateral in the event something happens, because we are taking a risk. So, you know, obviously, whatever the purpose of the loan is, there needs to be a full due diligence done by our investment team, a feasibility study done. Similar to the building that you are in, we have funded a number of commercial customers. There once, I can remember, we have got the Lala's building in Nambua that has been funded by us. And there are commercial loans also given to Fiji Airways. I'm sure you all have questions related to that, and we can always, you know, have that discussion later on in the Q&A session. So does that answer the question? Yeah, it's not only for employees.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. There's a question from the floor here. May we ask staff to bring the mics, please?
Testing. This is a bullet to you all. I'm nearly 80 years old, and I am one of the many pensioners whose lives have been severely compromised by the reduction of our pension. This especially during these difficult times. The previous government influenced the FNPF board to cancel valid pension contracts, even though FNPF's own actuary stated that there were sufficient resources to meet pension payments till all contracted pensioners passed away. The FNPF decree forbade members from challenging this decision in the High Court of Fiji, even though a case had been lodged by pensioners. This retrospective legislation is contrary to good governance and erodes the rule of law. The FNPF liquidity as of 30th of June 2019 was badly stressed. Ratio of liabilities to net assets was 96.8%, a very slim margin of 3.2%. The cancelling of pension agreements and refund of money to pensioners has resulted in a surplus of approximately $350 million, $100 million of which was used for top-up.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry, would you have a question for our panelists?
Yes, I have. Okay. Very soon, I need to get to it. This surplus was used by the fund to shore up its stressed liquidity. This aforesaid surplus is the difference between FNPF's actuary valuation of liability to pensioners, less the fund's made to contracted pensioners, less refunds made to contracted pensioners. These contracted pensioners should therefore be compensated for their aforesaid amounts together with interest, now approximately $700 million, or at least $500 million if the top-up is legal. As a current government's stated policy is to reverse the previous government's regressive decrees, please ask your board to consider how these pensioners can be compensated. We would like this issue to be resolved amicably. As these pensioners in their old age need funds for health care and cope with the rampant inflation. We look forward to the fund's response in the near future. If we have time, it would be informative and transparent to discuss why the funds was encountering financial problems. Meanwhile, we thank you all, and may God bless you all, and especially those who practice fair, caring governance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would it be possible to get your name, please, sir?
Yes.
Sorry? Mr. Christopher Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Ma. We'll ask our Mr. Singh to perhaps respond to two questions. One is in relation to Eve and how can the pensioners be compensated for what they feel is there's a need for compensation. And second is why did the fund have financial problems back then that it needed to do that?
For the last, this is our 9th or 10th forum. Since doing the pension reform in 2012, I think this has been a cry from all the pensioners as to why the pension reforms happened and as to why some of the pensioners, their monthly annuities were reduced. As you are all aware, there were a number of studies done by IMF, World Bank, ILO that suggested that those are the international organizations that are experts in superannuation. They did their studies and they suggested that FNPF conversion rates, which were 25% in 1975, were very high. The reason why the 25% was offered back in 1975 was because the average life of male or female used to be about 59 to 60 years old, and the retirement age back then was 55. So it sort of made sense to offer 25% conversion. But I have to put a caveat to that. There were no actuarial studies done to suggest that 25% was sustainable for the life pension that we would have promised to our sole and joint pensioners back then. But as we went down the line, these organizations did the study and they suggested that had we continued with the 25%, the fund would have exhausted the pension buffer reserve well before, and the fund would have had to, the fund started subsidizing from the member fund. So if you go back to the TAP slide, Rishi, so this is what was happening. The amount of annuity that we were receiving on a monthly basis, if you look at the diagram, it was on average, we were receiving around 25 million just before the reforms, 25 million annuity that used to come into the pension buffer, and we were paying 48 million in monthly annuities. So by any standards, by any international accounting standards or superannuation standards, it is unsustainable. So if I were to put it in simple words, if a man earns $100 and expends $150, it's a big problem. So that is what was happening. The 2 cents, if the pensioners in the room can remember, there was an additional 2 cents that used to go to the pension buffer reserve. By 2016, the experts suggested it would have gone broke. And I saw the pension buffer reserve going to zero. Furthermore, the study suggested by 2056, the fund would have gone broke. So what was the right thing to do back then was to do the reforms. Once we did the reforms, and the numbers quoted by Mr. Ma stands correct, but there are additional numbers that have not been discussed, and these are the statistics that I will share with in the room today. Once we did the reforms, 67% of the members decided to come back. 67% of the pensioners knew even the 8.7% was still generous. That's 6,846 members out of the 10,217 members. And out of the 6,846 members, 6,145 members applied their full pension back into the new scheme. The top-up that you are mentioning, if I can give you an example, sir, just please. The lowest pension we were paying on a monthly basis to a pensioner was $4. $4. How can a person survive with $4? That is the amount we topped up to $100. And the ones earning less than $100. There were 2,910 pensioners that did not suffer any change to their monthly reductions. The ones that were sitting on 15%, there were 1,830 that did suffer a reduction, and out of the total 10,000, 3,300 members took their principal pension back. We refunded the whole sum back, despite the fact that we paid them 4 or 5 times over the principal since they opted to join the pension scheme. So we had to make the decision. Otherwise, members in the room today wouldn't have funds to retire when they come of their age. So it was very important. For Fiji, FNPF is the anchor of the Fijian economy. Many of us in the room today, we have our children educated, we have a roof over our house, a roof over our heads because of FNPF. So it was very important for us to save FNPF. Had we not done that, by 2056, there would have been no FNPF. So that is the reason why we allowed the reforms to happen. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Christopher Ma, you had another follow-up question.
Thank you for your response. I'd just like to regress a little and go back to the initial formation of the fund. One of the founders was Robertson, and there was another person. And the whole idea of the Provident Fund was not only to help people save, but to save enough for pension. That the pension should be a life-sustaining pension. Okay? Because most of the people in Fiji were earning very low wages. Mr. Robertson knew that it would be very difficult for members to achieve a sustainable pension. That is why they introduced this pension scheme as an augmented pension scheme. It was augmented by the 2 cents pension fund, which was deducted from the contributions of members and put into a buffer fund in order to pay pensions so that people would get a higher amount. Okay? Now the big problem was when the Labour government came in, they changed that. The Labour coalition government, they decided that we should get rid of this 2%. And from then on, the fund kept going down. In addition, the amount of take-up for pensions was increasing. Okay? Now, but the thing is, when the fund was first started, they knew that the fund, the scheme needed to be reassessed in 5 years' time. they had to write off their books, as a result of which their liquidity was in a very bad position. Okay? So these are some of the reasons why the fund, has, got into big problems. Okay? So the main thing is for us pensioners, we're contracted pensioners. The actuary, FNPF's own actuary, had said that there was enough money to pay all of the contract pensioners till we all passed away, which was approximately an average of 19 years. Yet, the government, pushed the board to cancel our pension. I think this is totally wrong. And we were going to challenge it in the High Court, and we had lodged the case in the High Court. But the very regressive government had passed an act which forbade us to what's called, and this is totally wrong. In law, you never pass retrospective legislation, especially when there is a case in court. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Christopher Ma. Perhaps we'll ask Ku to explain the illustrative example that we have on the 25%. If you can just put up that slide, please.
Thank you, Siti. Before we explain the slide, there were no actuarial studies done, Mr. Ma. That's when the World Bank and the ILO came in and suggested that the rate of, yes, it was reduced from 25% to 15% from 2002 to 2008 gradually, because those rates were unsustainable. You had said the right things. Back in 75, 25% was too high. There were no actuarial studies to suggest the rates were sustainable, but there were no assessments done.
There was one more issue. The fund was paying excessive pensions to pensioners. Their rate of 25%, their rates were very high. They were paying members a very high rate. They were paying up to 20% to members.
You mean interest?
Yes, that was very high, and yet they were not crediting interest to pensioners' funds.
They cannot.
They did not.
They wouldn't.
They should.
They shouldn't.
Why shouldn't they?
Because we are promising you life pension beyond the guarantee period.
From an accounting side, it's two different businesses.
Maybe Mr. Ma, if we could let him answer, and you can respond after that.
Mr. Ma, that is the whole purpose of giving you that promise that we will continue to pay your pension. Because the fund was not in a position to sustain those rates. That is the very reason why we had to make the reduction. You've said the right things. Management did make the assessment, and the government of the day back then didn't have the guts to do actual review to say those rates are sustainable. But then a member, and there were no point in time that the fund ever paid interest of 20%. The highest, if I recall, in the history of FNPF in the last 56 years has been 12%. There was a 10% interest plus a 2% bonus paid. And these are actual statistics I'm quoting. I've been the CFO for the last 13 years. I know those numbers. That's why I'm telling you the exact stats. You can cross-check with annual reports. And I'll explain the slide. This is what I was alluding to earlier. If you continue to receive funds, this is an analogy. This is a tank, and if your pension is coming through this tank, through this thin pipe, at this rate, and you are pouring out annuities at these rates, what will happen? The pension business was going to go broke. There is no way. This is a very unsustainable model. If the other way, you had similar size pipe here and here, we could have sustained it. We had enough reserves. As of today, we still have 1.7 billion reserves. But that has come about because we've done the reforms. We've separated the three businesses. Pension businesses, we gave very high yielding bonds so that we could sustain the annuities that we've promised. Because now, due to improved health system, members are living more. Back in 1975, average was about 4 to 5 years, male and female respectively. Now it's 70 and 74 years. So if a member dies at age 80, from 55, we're going to sustain him for 67. That's 12 years. Another 13 years, FNPF will still have to pay him pension. That's the promise. That's why we had to do this. 8.7% has been actuarially tested, and recent studies are suggesting that it needs to be further reduced. So, by way of international comparison, benchmarking to other jurisdictions, we are still very generous in terms of our pension rates. So that is why that was very important. As opposed to the member funds, we are using those member funds to invest in aggressive assets. That's why those, if you remember in the last couple of years, we've been paying higher interest when you compare it to the banks. Last year we credited 6%, when banks were hardly giving 1%. If you look at your bank statements, for 12 months, sometimes you get 0.76%. This is actual rates I'm quoting from the banks. This is Westpac. So we compare, but FNPF is a different investor. We've got investment in bonds, equities, properties, offshore, inshore, and in hotels. That's why we are able to pull these returns and give you a higher interest. That's the promise. But it is a very unsustainable model if we continue to dip from member funds and continue to pay pensioners. That is not right. Otherwise, we will continue to face the same crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Perhaps if we can ask the next question, that's from one of our members that's online, and this question would be for Mr. Wangai Rawai. Will government refund, or will FNPF refund and government refund the funds that was used during COVID?
We understand that there's been some mention in some manifestos. However, no, there's this ongoing discussions, of course, with our line minister, which is the Minister of the DPM and the Minister of the Economy. However, when that is discussed, when the decision is made, we will let the public know. But other than that, the current is, no, we will not paying out any refunds at the moment because we haven't met on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Wangarawai. There was a question from a lady here on the floor, please.
Bula Vinaka. My name is Fulori Turanga and I'm a member. I have a comment and two questions for the panel this afternoon, this evening. It's very reassuring to hear from the members of the panel that our FNPF is safe. And like the coup had mentioned, FNPF is the anchor of the Fijian economy. So I thank you, gentlemen, for the reassurance. My comment would be, I would like to take this opportunity to really thank the fund. I think this was one of the questions, this was the big question that I asked in Suva, during the members' forum in Suva. I can see that a lot of my fellow Fijians had really benefited during COVID when the fund decided to come up with the unemployment benefit. So thank you so much, CEO, and thank you FNPF for actually helping my fellow Fijians during the crisis that they were facing during, at that time. My first question, and I also thank the CEO for raising this, FNPF and the Fiji Airways share acquisition. When that came out in the media, CEO, as a member, I was really oppressed. Because I said, well, for me as a member, the sad part about it was hearing the news from the Fiji Airways CEO and not from the FNPF CEO. So my question in regards to that, CEO, why were not the members consulted when the fund decided to go that way in terms of the Fiji Airways share acquisition? My second question is for the panel, the 7% increase for the contribution. Are we ready for that, given that the economy is just recovering from COVID-19? I believe it's 7% from the shares and 7% from the employers. Are we ready for that, CEO Vinaka?
Thank you. So two questions, CEO. One is why were the members not consulted on the Fiji Airways share acquisition? And the second is, are we ready for the increase in contribution rates?
Okay, on our first question, again, I refer back historically, whenever FNPF does its investment. So you're probably aware, we're guided by our FNPF Act, which is the legislation that covers FNPF operations. So under the Act, the board is appointed. So the board is appointed with the power to invest on behalf of the member. So the question whether why didn't we come back to member to request their approval on Fiji Airways investment. I think if you look back, historically, FNPF have never go back to members to request approval on any investment. We've been empowered under the law to actually carry out with the restriction under the due diligence requirement that we have to carry through from initiation, identification of an investment opportunity, right up to selection, to monitoring, and even to exit point. So that process has taken place. So if you look back, our asset has grown from to 8.7 billion. And none of that we have gone to members. We are new players here, but the board, FNPF was built since 1966. So if you look back, there was never a time that the board has gone back to member to request approval for any investment. I think we're guided by our investment policy, and we guided by our FNPF Act, how we invest. I think the result is a testament that we've done it correctly. There hasn't been any write down, or if there's any write down, there's always been a write back on investment, depending on the economic climate at any point in time. So that's the first one. And I think secondly, whether the...
Was in relation to,
are we ready for the 7%, which is 14 now? Again, that was the decision that government has imposed, that we go back to 14. If it was up to FNPF, well, we prefer to be reinstated back to the 18. And that's our position that we've been communicating to government. I think it's ready. Economy has changed. I mean, you would look at Nadi. Nadi is a good example. The hotels are open. It's to full capacity, even for us. We can even book at certain, even though it's owned by FNPF. Because we'll be here today and tomorrow. We can book. The rooms are booked out. So, and that's a good sign. The economy is back from where it was pre-pandemic from 2020. Now it's normalizing, but not at the 2019 level. But I think it'll reach there very soon. I hope I answer your question.
Thank you, CEO. Are there any other questions from the floor? Is there a question here?
Thank you. My name is Jim Sampson. I'm a member. And thank you for CEO and the FNPF team for the roadshow. I'm just asking a question on this drawdown account. I didn't realize that in the paper you didn't put the conditions, but you have to be medically unable to go to work and so forth. Why is not this open to all members?
Sorry, sir. Would you be able to move the mic a little closer? It's a little difficult
Hello?
to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Just a drawdown account, there's some restrictions in it. Why is it not open to others? Because I saw you've got about 7,000 plus pensioners in there. Why aren't you doing something that's the same concept as was Kontiki's having?
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. That's a very good question. I think a lot of people here would also require that, would want that clarification. The drawdown account is a retirement product. We've just introduced it recently. So if you are yet to make a decision, or if you haven't made a decision, you are 55 already, you've already reached the eligibility age. If you want to opt for the drawdown account, you are welcome to. Anyone can, but you can't be an existing pensioner, then you opt to go to the drawdown account. These are new members that haven't made their decision. So the beauty about the drawdown account is that you get paid the same level of interest as members get. You are paid a monthly annuity. So whilst you're getting a monthly pension to live on, the balance is also earning an interest. You are also entitled, in case of any emergencies, to also draw down on your lump sum, but then the term will also, the term will also be reduced. So there are two types of payments that you can opt for. One is a higher one and one is a low one. Of course, the low one will go for a longer term. And there's a standard term and there's a higher term. So now we would welcome you to speak, one of our officers here, but it's open, just to clarify, it's open to everyone that, have reached the eligible age. Okay, that's for people that, there are also certain, a member can retire through medical incapacitation. Okay, when that member retires, and that then goes to a medical board who makes the decision. The medical board makes the decision on behalf of FNPF. So if they certify that the member is mentally incapacitated, he or she can't work, she or he will be allowed to take out a full lump sum. They can also opt for drawdown account or any of the pension products, or even lump sum if they want to, the nominees.
In the brochure, we should have mentioned, we've got, it's mutually exclusive. You can have either be, taking up the product when you become of age, or in the event that, prior to your retirement age, you are medically unfit or incapacitated, or a member or non-member who is the sole nominee for deceased member. So those are two exceptions that you can also access this product other than once you reach your retirement age. Perhaps something that we can correct in our brochure. Receive.
Thank you, Mr. Wangarawai and Mr. Singh. So more information on that member drawdown account is in part of your package. You can find out more details on it. There's a brochure that's there. And the question before that related to that CEO alluded to on the board members, and it's also there on page 32 of your summary of the annual report summary. You can check there. Are there any more questions from the floor? And while perhaps I can ask one that has been asked online. When will FNPF move from Namaka to the FNPF Center?
The CEO has, in his presentation, he mentioned that we are trying to move in the next financial year. So our pension office is currently started downstairs. So hopefully in fact we are working very hard to get our to move our offices from Namaka to Nadi as soon as possible.
Mr. Wangarawai.
Thank you, Fina Turanga. When we were assisting our
Sorry,
staff,
ma'am, may we get your name, please, ma'am?
Fina Turanga.
Turanga.
Thank you. When we were assisting our workers in the hotels during our COVID FNPF assistant times, thank you for that, one of the major obstacles that we found was the glitches they had when they went on the myFNPF app. Is that all right now?
Sorry, could you ask the question again, ma'am?
When we were assisting our staff, they were trying to withdraw from the COVID assistance set by FNPF during COVID times. One of the major obstacles that they went through was the glitch in the myFNPF app. Has that been fixed now?
I think like any new initiative, and given the circumstances that we faced in COVID, a 1 in 100-year experience, never before. And the movement, restriction of movements and all of that, we had to really dig deep and sort of make sure that we had an online platform that will enable us to serve our members. Because mind you, we are an essential service so that we really cannot close. So we had to be innovative, and then that is why our IC team, City is part of that team that actually did those platforms, the digital platforms. Now, in an initial sort of undertaking like that, you will bound to have glitches. We do apologize for the glitches, but I think as we moved, as our team matured, they got better at it, and I think it was a testimony to our ability to adapt that now the applications went on smoothly, and the bulk, if not all, the applications went through the digital model. So, Siti, if you just want to extend on it.
Thank you, Mrs. Turang, on the question. So I understand you had, the question was on the app itself, as well as the employers trying to assist and upload. Is that correct? Okay, so we initially had some challenges because we had never been faced, no one had been faced with such a situation, but this I think was very quickly resolved. And in terms of the app, one of the challenges we had was we've never had so many different types of phones across Fiji that we had to design things for. So we went around that, and right now there's over 210,000 members that actually have registered. We've not had any complaints about glitches for a very, very long time. So perhaps if you're still having some issues, Ms. Turang, we can help you after this and assist you with the challenges you might be facing. Yeah? Thank you. So there's a question here, an SMS question that's asked here. I suppose we'll ask Mr. Wangarawai. Is it compulsory for a member to opt for a pension, or can they withdraw all their funds, and can they rejoin immediately as well after withdrawing all their funds?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Sometimes people have called me to sort of say, hey, I've heard that I can't take out my money lump sum when I'm 55. I just want to assure everyone in the room that the choices when you reach the eligible age of 55 are all there. If you decide to take out all your money, that's your choice, that's the decision that you make, but you will have to live with the consequences of your decision. You can take out your money, you can take out a joint pension, you can take out a sole pension, you can take out a drawdown account. So the freedom to decide as to what you want to do with your money rests with you and with you alone. But our advice to you people is, please, before you do so, come and sit down with one of our counselors. We all know the situation in Fiji. Now, filial piety, the feeling for the age, is now a thing of the past now. Unlike the current generation doesn't have that. Now, you can be forced out of your own home. So it's important for people to plan for their retirement as they age. Because whether you like it or not, one day you will retire. If you want to enjoy your retirement, you'll have to provide for your own. Otherwise, you will be heavily dependent on others. So you need to financially plan ahead for your future so that when you retire, you at least are financially capable of looking after yourselves. So this is why we would encourage all of you, please, those of you who are still young, 30, 45, whatever, please come to the fund and speak to one of our officers. Make additional contributions. Increase your contributions. Now, it's important that you come and have a session with our counselors. Because at the end of the day, the FNPF's mandate has really been about savings for retirement. That has not changed. That remains our core objective, to help you save so that you can enjoy your retirement, and also to provide you with post-income retirement. Vinak.
May we invite the gentleman at the back?
Good evening to you all. My name is Bishwajit Karan, and I'm a member of FNPF. I just have a request to make to FNPF in regards to whatever had happened, it happened. Whatever is going to happen, that's a creational activity that we have to do in the society and get things going on in the country. You know, when I talk about productivity, when I talked about creativity, I think like this is when we end in our life, we have some money left in the system, and that system in days to come should be able to help the members at least create a barrier of like 45 to 50 years. I'm saying in days to come. You know, we haven't reached that. We haven't done it. Never ever in life. Like let's create something which is going to help the members, because I'm a person. I worked, then I went on. I did business, and I bought a property which is commercial property. And now comes a time when I need to do investment. So I don't need a big fund to help me to get that investment done. But whatever a little percentage that would be arranged by FNPF, you know, let's create something and get to some place where we haven't been able to come to. You know, like let's do something. You know, I'm at the age of 50 now. So if there is like, okay, we will give you a 10% or a 20% from that money, at least to help you out to get the business going. I'm not saying I want it now, but there must be people who are waiting, and they want to know that if that would be possible. You know, like then I went to FNPF in Suba and asked the lady, hey, excuse me, can I get my money out? I got a commercial property. She said, no, there is no way you can get money out because you got a commercial property. But that's a I-2K land. So there was a, you know, like, I fall back. In my life, I was not able to take out that money. I got like, Jesus, what's happening, you know? We all create in days to come forward, you know? Like, boom, we make a benchmark. That's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vishwan.
Thank you. Yeah, over time, when we come to forums like this, we take your feedback and we go back, we discuss with our executives, and a number of changes have since arisen from past forums and from your feedbacks. So these are the kind of feedbacks we welcome. A number of changes have happened. If I can remember, your funeral assistance, initially it was $1,000, it's gone up to $2,000. Your textbook, incidentals for education assistance wasn't there. Through feedback from member forums, we brought it in. And I think if I got your name right, Vishwajit, thank you. I think you are alluding to assistance, housing assistance for commercial properties. Thank you. We'll take that feedback. We'll go back and discuss with our operations teams. I think it's a valid comment. If you've got a commercial property and if you can use your money, I'm sure this is going to help you in your retirement. So this is something that we are always open to feedbacks, and we'll take that on board. Naka.
Okay. Probably just to also clarify, we used to have what was called a small business equity scheme in the fund. So for people that wanted a small business, a market, taxi, whatnot, we assisted. You could draw a portion of your monies to do that under the small business equity scheme. But then when we reviewed the policy, we found out that that there were a lot of abuses, and it was not being used for the purpose that it was intended. So when we did a review, we also allowed for people to purchase selected shares from the stock exchange. But when we comparatively analyzed the return that someone would get, if they had kept their money in the FNPF with the returns that we paid, they could have earned a higher return. So I thought I'd just give that background. As Pravinesh had mentioned, this is the forum. We come in, we take your ideas. There's been some changes that we've made because of the suggestions that you've here. There's also been assistance that we have stopped because of abuses. But given, I mean, we are here also to look at the future and also, in terms of being positive about the whole future. And we take suggestions on board, and when we have our discussions, we can, we note the suggestions that you've made.
Thank you, Mr. Mangarawai and Mr. Shwati. Is there any more question? There's one here on SMS question, maybe for CEO. Who represents the workers on the board?
You're probably aware. I understand if you go back historically, tripartite was once part of the board selection. So there was an employee, an employer, and government rep. The current act that we're in place now, it's based on skill set under the appointment of the Minister for Economy, the Minister of Finance. Again, most of our representatives in the board are all members of FNPF forum. So I'm assuming they are the representative of the member, whether it's tripartite or the existing arrangement that is stand now.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, this Ms. Turanga, I think, is a question. Can we have the mic there, please, sir? Oh.
Hello, everyone. Just a question.
Sorry, sir, could we get your name, please, sir?
My name is Meli Matimbeli, and I'm 53 years old, getting there very soon. Just a quick question for you guys. Please, could you clarify how our fund works? Because I didn't got much portion in my accounts, but what really concerns me, because when times I'm in need, I go for my general accounts for my studies and my family. Is there a certain criteria which makes it be, there's a lot of obstacles on that criteria, so I didn't meet up with my needs. And my question is that only happen for us members? Why it didn't happen to the government when it steps in and take a big sum to whatever investment they do with members who are not advised?
Nak, is that the question?
This one, more to come.
Okay. Let me. Now this is the. We thank the members for these kind of questions, because this is the forum for these kind of questions. Because we don't want you people to get your answers from elsewhere, where you get the wrong answers, from the grog bowl or the market and all of that. So this is the opportunity that when you come in, we would like to encourage you to ask, and I'm thankful of the question being asked. If you look on the slide, this is the each $1 that comes in from a member, the preservation policy splits it into 30%. So when $1 comes into your account, 30 cents goes to your general account, 70 cents goes to your preserved account. This was effected from 2014, the preservation policy. We did that because, going back to what I said, the purpose of FNPF is to save for retirement. Prior to that, before we changed that, members were coming and taking out over 2/3 of their money. They were allowed to withdraw more than 2/3. So which was contrary to the purpose of what FNPF was set up. FNPF started as a retirement fund and remains to be the retirement fund. So when 30 cents come in, it goes into the general account, 70 cents goes to your preserved account. That 30% that you have in terms of your general account, that's to cater for the 5 grounds of withdrawals. That's there. Medical, education, housing, funeral, unemployment, and of course, natural disaster. That's the only approved grounds of withdrawals. Anything outside of that, that's not allowed. So you can access your 30%. The only time that you can access your preserved account when you're applying for a first-time home, first-time residence or a land. You will then be allowed to take 30% out of your 70%, which works out to 21%. 21% from that preserved account, plus 30% from your general account is 51%. So that is the total amount that you can have to purchase a first-time home for you, residential for you. And other than that, that is also the general account. You are restricted to those 5 grounds of withdrawal. Before, we used to have 23 grounds of withdrawals, which when we did the review, we've removed that because it was contrary to the purpose of what FNPF was set up for. And also with the FNPF, the more you put in, the more you get. It's also an accumulation fund. So it depends on how much you're getting paid, and it's based on the salary that is paid in, a contribution by the employer and your contribution. And of course, the other part of it, which is the interest. FNPF pays you interest on an annual basis, depending on what we declare during the end of the year. Okay? You ready for your second question?
So, Mr. Wendrawa, I think he also asked, given that we have restrictions like that for members, why are there also no restrictions for those that are seeking loans or government? That's what part of it is.
Thank you. The FNPF is basically an investment fund. Without investment, we can't pay interest to you. That's the only way it earns money. It collects your contributions. The board is then mandated, those that are appointed to be board of directors invests your money. They invested in order to earn a higher return. We declared 6% last year. So the expectation from the members is that when we lend out monies, we need to be ensuring that we make enough money to ensure that we pay the interest that our members expect, or at least what we've declared in the previous year. So that's the challenges given the investment climate in Fiji. That's the responsibility and the challenges that our investment team will have to do. The interest that we pay is dependent upon the interest that our investments earn. And that's why for FNPF, our investments team, that's a crucial part of what FNPF is. It has to continually invest that money, whether it is to the government, and by nature of the restrictions that FNPF has in investing overseas, the bulk of its money is invested locally. And given the lack of opportunities for investment locally, our board of directors and our investment team now ensures that they really need to go through the due diligence in order to ensure that whenever they are parting with your hard-earned members' fund, at the end of the day, it gets a return. So it's important. They are governed by our investment portfolio statement and also the investment policy statement. And there are strict criteria and guidelines which our investment team will have to meet before they actually give out any loans, whether it to government or whether it to anybody else. And just for your information, the interest that we've been earning from government is the one that's been that's the largest part of our interest that we've had. And that's really the earnings that we earn from those government bonds has enabled us to be offering the kind of assistance we are able to offer during COVID.
Just to add to your question, we have a policy which is referred to as investment portfolio statement. That sets the restriction on the asset class we hold. So previously, if you go historically, I'm always referring to history. So if you look back around 2011, 2006, normally it's around 60% of our holding are government papers, relating to government paper. Fast forward to 2022, we only hold 42% from government paper. So that's a progression because we're going more to equity holding. So that's the reason we acquire Fiji Airways shares, we acquire hotels. We are the 5th biggest shareholder in the BSP group. We owe HFC, so that's why we're going towards that path. So normally it was around 60, now it's 42.
Thank you.
Rishi, if you can go back to that slide of the tender process. This is the process that happens when government floats bonds. So RBF advertises, and then FNPF assesses availability of funds. No, the previous one. This is when they float. So we'll assess, our investment team will do that, and then we'll bid for the bonds. If I remember, just pre-COVID and during COVID, when government floated bonds, in some instances, our success rate on government bonds was as low as 12%. So that, CEO, just correct me if the number is wrong. So it's about 12%. So that means 88% chances the government borrowed from elsewhere. Because government also needs to reduce cost of financing because it needs to fund the budget deficit. So if some of you may remember, government was also borrowing from outside, and those 40-year loans with 10-year grace period coming at a very concessional rates definitely helped the government to raise funds during COVID to fund for unemployment assistance, etc., or even for infrastructure and capex. So FNPF bids were retained. So only we had a success rate of 12%. That's the lowest we've had. So we have to look elsewhere, because at the end of the day, we still have to give you interest on June 30th. So 6% last year, the prior 2 years, 5 and 5. So those were still good, but they were not only coming from government bonds. We had to look at our other investment portfolios, not only locally, as well as internationally, offshore. Because during COVID, our hotels were all closed. We took the time to renovate some of them. The borders were closed, tourists weren't coming in. So we weren't getting money from our hotels. So our offshore investments paid. Some of our investment properties were impacted, but we still had a high number of tenancy. We gave moratoriums to some of our tenants. But during that period, the government bond was a blessing to us. It continued to pay us a fixed coupons. So that's why we said, during COVID, these bonds became very handy.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. There is a question that I think one of our online members asked while the mic is being passed to those that have raised their hands. On page 6 of the annual report, so member summary, the second row indicates member balances from $0.01, 1 cent, to $5,000. This is incorrect, as the minimum opening deposit is $10. Please clarify.
Thank you. I think it's a good observation. But the 10% at the $10 minimum had come in just a few years ago, and we've got our members who have been here for a number of years. So like what Pate said, there were 23 grounds of withdrawals, and in instances, there were a number of members who had withdrawn money and left small amount of balances, and over time, because of the SDB deductions, these balances had gone down to zero. That's why we are still carrying them. And according to our law, we cannot close off these accounts until the member comes and withdraws fully, or becomes of entitlement age, or any other legislative review that we do to close off this account. So by law, we just cannot. We've obtained legal opinion, so that's why we still have balances, 0.01, or 1 cent rather. But, good observation. Henceforth, since 2014, because we are preserving 70%, our members should not have such low balances. And that is why we are confident in saying that you should have a meaningful retirement balance once you retire.
Thank you, Ku. So for our members who would like to know a little bit more on that and all that's around the zero balances, so in your summary report, there is a case study on page 7. So just after page 6 that was reported, so please do have a look at page 7. There's a question here in regards to the FNPF Plaza in Nadi. And it has come online. Most of the tenants have left due to the high cost in rent and low sales at the plaza. How did the board member come up with the idea of building this plaza, and has there been losses incurred in this investment? So the question is, there are two questions. How did the FNPF board come up to the idea of building this plaza? And the second part of that question, has it been profitable or have losses been incurred on this investment?
Yeah, I think firstly, this property was FNPF initially. So the intention to build was done way back in 2015. So to enhance, I think, I mean, if you're from Nadi, I think you should be proud. This, it's a landmark for Nadi. It's creating a new vibe. That's the intention. Loss making, in fact, we are not. It's not a loss making for us. Valuation based, it's actually gain on our return. Again, we just out of COVID-19. So if you're commenting on a normal year, then I think for any business, if you talk about any business around the country, we went through, a hard time. So FNPF is no exception. I think the only thing that has protected us, because our diversification is such that some of our sector actually have done well during COVID-19, including our telecom and our banking sector, that actually have lifted our profitability through the year. Overall, as a FNPF investment, we've done well. I'm assuming through the presentation I've shown the numbers on our performance in 2021 and against our performance against 2022.
Thank you, CEO.
Siti, just to sort of clarify, the FNPF is a long-term investor. A member can join in at 6 years old, and he or she will have that money until he or she reaches 55. So the FNPF has a long investment term horizon. It will undergo the highs and the lows of any economic period. So for FNPF, it's a long-term player, okay? As you know, it's cyclical. There are seasons, it's cyclical. Businesses go up and business goes down, there's a period. But the FNPF is here for the long term. And it can afford to do so because of the long-term nature of, and it has to continue to be investing. And I think one of the key that the CEO has alluded to is what's been the saving grace of FNPF is the diversified investment base of FNPF. You've got your government bonds, you've got your properties. This is included, you've got the hotel and the tourism sector with the operators there. You've got our telecommunications company. You've got our banks, which is HFC and BSP. We've got funds that are overseas, infrastructure funds. And through the telecommunications network, we own via ATH, we own the mobile telecommunications company in American Samoa, in Kiribati, in Vanuatu. We're now moving to Papua New Guinea. During COVID, when there was a restriction in movement, the telecommunications sector did very well. As you know, Zoom and data usage went up. So that's the benefit of making sure that we have a diversified investment base to ensure that come what may, like what we hit when COVID hit us, we've got other sectors that pick up the slack for us and continue to earn. That's the benefit of a well-diversified investment base. And our board of directors and investment teams are charged with looking at investment opportunities all the time to ensure that there's continual income coming in from the investments. FNPF has to keep investing to ensure that you get paid the 6% or thereabouts that you expect each year. Vinak.
Thank you, Mr. Wengro. Is there a question from the floor? Yes, sir. We have time for 2 more questions. So.
My name is Penicha Midibukibo. I should say that FNPF team is doing a wonderful job when it comes to the arrangement of this kind of forum. Also your awareness team is doing a great job in going around, presenting to the villages and also to the settlements of what they're doing, what you guys are doing. But I can remember there was a time that the rumors came that there was no money in FNPF. Looking at the presentation that you guys are doing today, there's a lot of money in FNPF, and you guys are doing a great job. Is there any other, this is my question, probably not a question, it's a recommendation. Is there any other way apart from the awareness team? You have a good guy walking around here, you used to go together during your awareness, and he's such a great guy. He's right there. He's not a manager of a department. He's got a very good mouth. He's from around. Is there any other way we can improve this presentation to the very grassroots that is very smart in their smartphone when it comes to there's no money in FNP at the time? No, because this information is very crucial for everybody to know and understand, especially the one that works the one that works like the farmers, the carpenters, that they are not very accessible to the phone. That's all, sir. You guys are doing a great job. Please don't let anybody tell you that you guys are not doing a great job. You're marvelous.
Naka, thank you for that feedback. In terms of the FNPF Act, one of our basic functions is carry out member education, advocacy, and awareness. And that's something that we probably had not been focusing well previously, so that's why we are now focused on making sure that you will probably notice that when you look at a billboard, when you go on the radio waves, when you go on the TV, you are being bombarded with information about FNPF. That's purposely being done. We want to become a nuisance, a good nuisance to you, so that, in fact, that you keep reminding yourself that if you haven't planned for your retirement, you got to plan for your retirement. Or you got to start thinking that you got to retire someday, and you better be prepared when that day comes. So our awareness and member advocacy team, thank you very much for that feedback. We are now focusing on actually linking with the various stakeholders out there that are also doing similar work, like the provincial councils, the Fijian Affairs Board, the other financial institutions. We are networked via under the chairmanship of the Reserve Bank of Fiji. We are part of a financial awareness team, inclusion team, that also goes out and sort of thinks of ways in which we can improve our advocacy. I think if you had heard recently, FDB has come out with one of these digital modes of financial. So this is an effort. FNPF, for our part, are also going out to ensure that we have a one-on-one. And I think for FNPF members out there, we've got a lot of retirement planning tools that are out there. Our calculator, those of you that are working, please play around with our calculator. Just add $5 or $10 every payday. You'll be amazed at how much you can save when you reach 55. And that's readily available from our people. It's also, you can access it via our website. We want to make it accessible on the mobile also. But thank you for the feedback. There's a renewed focus from FNPF, and we are also resourcing properly our member education advocacy team to actually go out and meet the real people and empower them with information that they get from us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wangarawi. We have time for one more question.
Winakbalevu City. Just the last questions from our end, Winakbalevu City. Just on your investment portfolio, we can see that the fund is doing exceptionally well in terms of investment. My question is, can members expect an increase in interest in the near future?
CEO, I think that question was meant for you, please, sir.
That is always our objective. Again, you're probably aware, and previously majority of our holding was fixed income. So there's a promised return. So that's why we heavy with government paper, government bond, deposit with bank. We are one of the substantial cash holder with all banks. So Westpac, ANC, you name it, we have funds with them. So we're one of the biggest cash holder with bank. But our transition from fixed income to growth investment, which is shares. Shares has a potential of actually outdoing the market, so potential of actually outdoing the market, but there's risk factors also. So high risk, high return. That's the perspective. So for this year, we're tracking well so far. Our plan for financial year end, we're assuming that we'll get there with a good rate again. But I won't promise what rate then.
Vinaka CEO, I think there's a request for one last question since he opened the question. Mr. Ma, may we ask you to keep your question concise, please, and ask that question if we humbly ask you to keep it concise.
Thank you for bearing with me. Hello. You know, when the Provident Fund was started and in his early days, one of his values was that they would treat the stakeholders fairly, being members or pensioners, you know. And that has, you know, worked throughout the years. But since the restructure, the emphasis seemed to be on members. You're investing all this money for members to earn more money, more high interest. But for pensioners, you are just acting like any annuity company, like any financial company. You're paying us fixed interest rates, you know. I think you can do better than that and work harder for us pensioners. You should be able to keep books to show what your investment of the money that we give you to buy annuities and see how much more money you are making from the investment so that you can pay us a higher rate of interest to cope for inflation, you know, because we have no hedge for inflation. When cost goes up, can't do anything, and the older we get, the more money we need because we have more health needs and all that. So really, in all fairness to us, pensioners, you should work as hard as you work for members.
Thank you.
And can I suggest that you look at this and do your bookkeeping so that you have a separate annuity account where you can see what the return on our annuity money that we give you, and then you can create a reserve where you can pay us a higher annuity because you are making more income from your investment.
Thank you, Mr. Ma, for that question. I think the team, the executives can meet you a little after this, and if you have more questions, you can have your one-on-one time.
Thanks, Sidi. I think Mr. Ma is referring to indexation, cost of living adjustment. That's a fair call. The reason why we're not doing it is because like I alluded earlier, it's a promise. But again, we take your feedback on board. We'll discuss with our actuary. I mean, this is something we always take back and we'll discuss, and we'll come back to next year's forum and we'll try and, answer the queries as to why, we should apply COLA or not. But in any case, the bonds that we had initially put in the retirement income fund were very high yielding bonds to make sure we mitigated the risk. But, your point taken on board, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Thank you. So that basically wraps up our questions and answer session tonight. You do have time to have one-on-one questions with them afterwards or with some of the staff.
Hello, Siti. Just Mr. Ma, just to clarify, he's asked us to separate. The pension fund is already a separate fund. So that's what we did during the reforms. We separated the FNPF, and there's a special, for pensioners, there's a special fund for it, different assets to cater for them, and that's separated from the main FNPF. And there's also a third fund, which is called a special death benefit fund. But there's a retirement income fund that's specifically for pensioners.
Thank you.
And during COVID, I think there was a one-off payment done as well. We didn't leave out the pensioners. We know that, everybody was affected. So during COVID, we had made a payment of about $500 or so to the pensioners. And as, if the surplus does build up, then our actuary, with the actuary's assessment, we can make some decisions. We can take some decisions, Mr. Ma.
Thank you. As we wrap up the questions today, the Q&A session, perhaps if I may ask our panelists the last questions, if that's okay. And the first question goes to Mr. Wangairawai. In 4 words or less, could you please describe what FNPF's approach is to serving customers? In 4 words or less, Mr. Wangairawai, please.
Members are our heart. Members are our heart.
Thank you, sir. And this is for Chief Operating Officer. In 4 words or less, could you please describe what's the objective of FNP operations going into 2024? What are the key objectives? In 4 words or less, please.
Simple and futuristic. Simple and futuristic.
Simple and efficient. Thank you, Mr. Singh. And the last question for our CEO. If one of our members is asking right now, if I save at FNPF, will my funds grow more compared to the other financial institutions?
Absolutely, yes.
There you have it, members. You've heard from our panelists, and we thank you for it. Please do give them a round of applause. And we also ask that you give yourself a round of applause for your contribution today. Before we invite the CEO to come and close our session today with his closing remarks, I would like to acknowledge the following: South Pacific Recordings for providing visual and audio. Yes. The Boss Communication Agency for their live stream services to everywhere in the world, and our friends from the Fiji Association of the Deaf. And as CEO comes, we also ask if you could please start completing your feedback forms. Yes? So we now invite CEO to deliver his closing remarks.
Just want to take this time to again thank the members. I think you have other things to do today, but to be here, to listen, to have time to listen to us, we thank you for that. Again, I need to remind us again, our objective as a fund is clear in our act, which is Section 2, and then that was mentioned by Mr. Ma. We accumulate saving sufficient to gain sufficient income for retirement. That's the core function. We have no other objective under the Act. Even though the design is such that it allows us members to withdraw during their lifetime, and the areas of withdrawal is very clear in the Act. We cannot make anything that's apart from the Act, that we are restricted, we're bounded by the Act, and that's been always the case. You refer to, again, I refer to Mr. Ma in relation to the fund. We run 3 separate funds. One is the fund relating to members, which is around, I mentioned a number, 8.6 billion asset. But if I break it down, it's 8.2 for members, it's 360 million for pension, which we run separately with its own investment principle and restrictions. And we have the death benefit, which is around 26 million. That's always been in the book. So if you have the annual report, once it's passed through Parliament, which is expected on the 31st, you can have our annual report and you can go through its detail in the notes of to the account. So I wish you well. Hope that we've answered all your questions. But if you still have any question, you can raise it with us today.
Unaka CEO, for those that perhaps joined us a little late today, we do have another session tomorrow at Lautoka at 5:30 at the Retired Servicemen League building. And that's also for our viewers that are listening in. So before we close with a word of prayer, we ask that you complete the form. There's some food pack at the back there. Please collect the food pack. Give your feedback form to the registration officers that you gave, and they will give you a gift before you live. May we please bow our heads in prayer. Father, we thank you for this time that we've had. We know, Father, that there was a lot of information to take on and there was a lot of discussions, but we thank you in the manner and the spirit in which we had these open and honest discussions today. We pray, Father, that as we go back to our homes, that you will be with us and you will keep us safe on our journey home. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the lives of everyone that's here tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. Please collect your food from the back and give the feedback as well as collect the gifts. Thank you very much to all our viewers who are listening on our live stream. Thank you very much. Good night. Nisamode.